Hello everybody and welcome to another exciting episode of the Jack Simpson podcast. On today's episode we've got on Garry Ballantyne. Welcome.
Hello, mate.
Hello, how are we doing?
I'm very good, yeah.
Good.
Very good.
So obviously I've got you on today. Do you want to tell everyone why you're on here today?
No, well, obviously we do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu together for the last 6 months. I've been going a couple of years now, and you do the podcast. Obviously, I own an interesting business, and I like to think I've led quite an interesting life in the last 42 years. So I thought, well, why not get together and give you some content for your podcast?
100%, yeah.
There you go.
So obviously you said 42 years
Yeah.
on the planet. So where did it all begin then?
Glasgow, mate. Yeah, proper Glasgow, not the plastic Glasgow that everybody in Corby seems to come from. But no, I was born and brought up in Drumchapel, in Glasgow, and then my mum and dad, and I could talk for hours just on each subject. But yeah, my dad done well in the 80s. He got a job in the oil industry, so he was earning good money. So we moved out the council estate flat that we were in the pit in the tenement, and we moved into a boat house, or as a boat house, which me and my sister both laughed at because, we didn't laugh at it, we were shitting ourselves because we thought we were moving into a boat house.
Yeah.
And then we realised that what that actually meant was it was actually a house that had been bought.
Right.
Not a house on a river. But we were just kids at the time. So we moved into a nice area of Glasgow, Auchinleck, which is near Bishopbriggs. Lived there for a few years, and then around about when I was about 7, my mum died of a brain aneurysm. And my old man was, proper old school working class, Glaswegian, and he done like 2 weeks about on the oil rigs. And when he was back in Glasgow, he was, out with his mates a lot of the time, having a drink, and it's because he's worked hard for 2 weeks, so a lot of downtime. So all of a sudden, he was thrust into a life of having to bring up 2 kids that he didn't even know how to cook. Do you know what I mean? Didn't know how to cook, didn't know how to clean. Didn't know, how to be a mum, which is what we needed. So we had an old-fashioned thing called a home help, which is like, social worker that came round and she helped do the mum things. And my old man, being my old man, obviously started seeing her,
Right.
which was against the rules and regs, but, it happened. So the 2 of them, she left her job, and the 2 of them coupled up, and then they started a business together, and managed to buy a house together, which was a lovely big house, loads of room. She had an older son, and we lived in that house, Coulson Road, and we went to Florida on holidays, and we lived quite a nice life because my old man and his Mary, as her name was, but I think my sister had a lot of problems getting on with Mary because my sister obviously resented the fact that, she hadn't got her mum anymore. She's about 9-10 years old, difficult age. Mary didn't know how to handle her, so it was just friction all the time. So eventually that split up my dad and Mary, and we were actually made homeless, mate. So around the ages of like 10, 11, 12, I can't remember the exact ages, but we were homeless, like proper homeless. Nowhere to go. My old man's on the street, 2 kids. And
What was that like then?
I don't remember much about it. Obviously, as a kid, you just roll with the punches, don't you? Do you know what I mean? So, but I do remember going to this centre in Glasgow. It's called the Hamish Allen Centre. The name just sticks with me through the years, talking about it over time. So the Hamish Allen Centre, now it's known for like destitute and drug abuse, and But basically, we were put up there as a homeless family for 2-3 nights or whatever until they found us temporary accommodation, which was in Sighthill Flats. Again, another part of the city that's not, particularly nice. And then my old man at the time was talking about getting back together with Mary, and she was like, I'm not having it because of the situation that my sister and that. So we got offered a tenement, a 3-bedroom tenement in Milton, which is a part in the outskirts of Glasgow, very near where we had grown up. So we started... went to the same school, then we moved on to high school, and I lived there basically. That was the flat in the house, or the tenement that I grew up in until I was 18. I got a job and I left school at 16, working at McDonald's, waiting for my application to join the Royal Navy. So my old man was quite a stickler. He was like, need a bit of a foundation. I wasn't academic. My sister was very academic, but I wasn't. She would fly. She could pass exams with her eyes shut. It's a funny story, actually. I remember as I was growing up, I was always you get measured against your brothers and sisters anyway in life, right? It's just natural. You know, how can they pass it but you can't? How can they pay attention but you can't? How come they've got a good school report you haven't? How come they've got a good parents' night when you haven't? So it was tough for me growing up because I was always measured against them. Now I remember getting our standard grades in Scotland. You don't get A's, B's, C's. The marks you get for your GCSEs, if you like, standard grades are called in Scotland, are actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 being the best. So Kelly, my sister, got straight 1s across the board. Everything was a 1 apart from maths. She got a 2. Now my old man, when these came through the door, opened them up, and she came through and told my dad, I've got 1s apart from maths. I got a 2, and my old man was like, that's phenomenal. You know, he couldn't believe it. He was made up for it. Now I could hear all of this conversation in my bedroom, and I was happy for my sister, right? But again, it was just me thinking, I must be thick because there's no way I'm going to get anywhere near that. You know, lucky if I'm going to get a 4. That 4 would be, that'd be impressive. And I knew it wasn't because I was thick. It was just, I just couldn't. There was something there stopping me from doing well at school. Anyway, I remember her coming up the hallway, getting into a room next door to mine, and I could hear her crying, and I was like, fuck, she greeting for? And I heard my dad coming up the hallway and getting into her room, and he says, what are you greeting for? And she says, I can't believe I got a 2 in maths. And my dad was raging. He was like, what are you greeting for? A 2? 2 is amazing.
Yeah.
You know, and she was like, no, but I wanted a 1. And my dad says, fuck's sake, your brother's next door, he can't even fucking count to 2. And it makes me laugh now, and it made me laugh at the time, because one thing I've always had is a good sense of humour. I can always laugh at myself and that, but that always stuck with me. And he was kind of, I'm all right, I'm actually quite good at maths, but my mathematics and that at school, I just couldn't do it on an academic level. But anyway, my sister, it's a different story. She actually passed away a couple of weeks ago. I was just come back from Glasgow for a funeral, which is a bit sad, but that's a whole different ball game. I'm going to go down that road. But yeah, worked at McDonald's full time until I joined the Royal Navy at 18 and left Glasgow. I met my wife online about 3 months before I joined on an internet chat room, Yahoo Chat. Right. And that budding romance began online, and we started talking on the phone, proper old school as well. We didn't actually have a landline in the house until we got the internet, and it was dial-up internet, proper old school. So we spoke for each other, and I was like, I'm going to join the Navy, and I still did, and had a bit of a wobble. I'm not too sure if I'm going to join, but I did join. That was March 2000. And that was it, really. That was me left Glasgow. I didn't really go back to Glasgow then, because every leave period that I got, I always come back to Corby, which is where she was from. And that was the same then until 2003 when we got married. So I asked her to marry me. Her name's Lynette, by the way. She'll be watching this. She said, make sure you mention me. I'm the most important person in your life. And she's right. But unfortunately, the most important person in my life is me. So I'm gonna be talking about me most of the time. I'm only joking.
No, that's why you're on it.
She's very supportive. She's a brilliant, just a brilliant mum, a brilliant wife, a brilliant partner, brilliant friend. Somebody that I couldn't live without, to be honest with you. So we got married 2003. Very quickly, we had my son, and then followed by my daughter a year later. And we kind of potted around and moved around when I was in. Done nearly 9 years.
Where were you based out of?
Plymouth initially. So when my first ship. So when I joined up as an aircraft engineering mechanic, thinking that I would enjoy that, and that would and you know, not being academic, it actually goes off like an IQ test that you do in the careers office. They're not interested in what GCSEs you've got. This is the to join as a standard seaman, or you know, rating as it's called in the Navy. Same with the Army. They're not bothered about, you know, what your educational background is up until that point. They'll assess what you can do, what you can't do. So I went in for this IQ test, and you don't get your score. You just basically say, that's the job I'm going to do. You do the test, and then they say whether you can do the job or not. I then found out much later on when I was in the Navy what my score was, and it was in the top, 2-3% of scores. So it was really, really high. So I could have done any job I wanted. And we'll come on to why that's important in a second. But yeah, I went and done my aircraft engineering training after basic training. Basic training is done in Plymouth at HMS Raleigh. And a lot of people get homesick, whereas I didn't. It was hard. I missed my girlfriend Lynette at the time. Didn't really miss home because there was nothing to miss.
Yeah.
And this big adventure and this place as far south as what you can get away from Glasgow.
Yeah.
Meeting these people from all around the country. You meet Welsh people, Geordies, Cockneys. It was brilliant. Very hard. Not necessarily the most physically demanding thing, although it's physically demanding. Don't get me wrong, but you're not doing like Royal Marines Commando training, which is who I went on to serve with later on in my career. It's nowhere near as arduous and as physically demanding as that. But what it was is mentally demanding. The Navy places you in a lot of situations, whether it be at sea on a ship, hundreds of miles away from any support, where you've got to be mentally quite stable.
Yeah.
You can't just freak out and think, I want off this ship now, because that's not going to happen. Or if you're going to submarine. So after basic training, I went and done my aircraft engineering mechanics training, and Freddie, that just couldn't pass the exams. It was written exams, so it wasn't even multiple choice. So you had to write down your answers, and I knew what the answers were. So if somebody was sitting next to me and I had to orally say what the question was, and they wrote it down for me, I'd have passed it. Still quite confident about that. So failed that training. They obviously said, what job do you want to do now? So I became a stores accountant, which is like a storeman at sea, where you look after all the bits and bobs at sea, which is one of the best jobs you can have in the Navy, actually, because everybody wants to be your mate.
Yeah.
Because you control everything.
Yeah. I was a stacker in the RAF.
Yeah. So stores is so key on board ship that everybody wants to be a mate, and you don't work evenings or nights or watches. All night in, as they call it. So you're in your pit every night. So I enjoyed that job, but it was also my secondary role was first aider. And you're trained to quite a good standard at sea, because you've only really got one medic on board unless you've got a doctor on board with you, which isn't very often. So most of the time you've only got one medic. So all the first aiders need to be trained to a decent standard. And we actually had an incident on board where some Germans were visiting the ship. So they did this thing called a cross pole. And there was this ship called the Mecklenburg, and a few Germans visiting the ship, and some of our guys were over on their ship, just learning how different navies do different things. This was in the Baltic Sea. It was a operation exercise Strong Resolve, it was called. Anyway, on the way back to their ship, the seaboat flipped in really bad weather, and we managed to recover one of them on board, and the medic on board basically had to call time on him, so he was declared not declared dead, but he was T4, so he's done. And then we had another guy brought on board by one of the other ship's helicopters. And we worked on him for ages. And the first guy was called Stefan Paul, the second guy was called Samuel Scheffelmeyer. Both of them passed away on board, and I was part of the team that tried to help kind of revive them and save them. One guy we managed to save, he was brought on board by a lad called Godders, is one of the lads, and he's swimming in the watch. He actually dived into the sea, grabbed him, brought him back on board, and he was put in the skipper's bath and rewarmed, and he lived, so Godders saved his life. Anyway, my actions as a first aider that day were praised by the medic on board, and she actually said, "You're a natural." She said, everything, all your training, you didn't think about it, you knew what you had to do, didn't have to remind you anything. And she says, "Have you ever fancied being a medic?" And I was like, that was like the spark. I went, that's what I want to do, because I loved it. I did enjoy it. I found it easy to learn. I enjoyed it. I was a natural at it, and I put my chit in then to transfer to become a medic. And it took a while for it to go through, but it went through eventually, and I went and done my retraining in Aldershot with the Army and the RAF, so it's like a mixed bag. Yeah. And that was interesting. But after 18 months, I became a qualified medic. And my first and only posting really as a medic was with the 3 Commando Brigade, Royal Marines. And I loved that. That was really good. So it's the green side of the Navy, as they call it. Yeah. So it's soldiering. And it was just, I enjoyed it, working with the Marines. All my best mates now, that since I left the forces, are all bootnecks. We ultimately got deployed to Afghanistan. Went on Op Herrick 5, and that was kind of the beginning of the end then, because although I had a quiet tour, I had a wee chat with God out there, and I was like, if I get back from here, I'm not coming back out. And then when I got back, I was fine. The kids were still young, 3 and 4. And I went to an RAF base. So I was based at RAF Whittering, which was just up the road. That was a preference draft because I'd had loads of non-preference drafts, and I thought, I'll put in for a preference draft to go to Whittering. And it just coincided that my draft coincided with somebody leaving Whittering. So I got it, and that's brilliant. But me and the RAF just didn't mix. It wasn't. So I was working with the RAF medics, and I don't know if I couldn't conform to the RAF ways. And working in a med centre with the RAF medics, I'd just come out the field. I was green. I was effectively a soldier, if you like. And now all of a sudden I've been stuck in an office and shuffling paperwork, and it just wasn't for me. So one of the best things I did when I was there, though, was my PO, Ronnie Corbett. That's not his real name. Ronnie's his nickname. But Ronnie came to me and he says, I've got a job for you. He says, come and have a word. And I went and seen him, and he says, I need an answer right now. He says, do you want to go and work with SBS? And I was like, yeah. And he says, I need to know now. And I went like, yes, done. And he was like, but you don't know any details. Do you want to check with the missus first? I went, if you need an answer now, the answer's yes. So I had to drive down to Poole and meet the guy who was in charge of the medics, whatever. Done that. And then, I basically worked with SBS for 3 months, I think. I was an attached medic. So I wasn't jumping off walls or doing any special forces stuff. I was just literally there as medic cover. But it was probably the best 3 months of my time in the armed forces, but without a shadow of a doubt. I got to see some amazing cool stuff just watching whilst they trained. I managed to save one of their lives because he was climbing onto an oil rig actually, and his rope snapped and he ended up jogging. And that was a bit hairy. But what was even funnier was the fact that I was like proper. I was being professional, obviously. Made sure that he was safe. I made sure that he was fine. And we brought him back on board, and I got the oxygen. It's called the ambu box. I got it all out and all that. And he was throwing up seawater, and I was like, this guy's in a bad way. And he was fine. He was still talking. He didn't lose consciousness and anything like that. And all the other SB lads were there, and I was like, wow, fucking hell, you nearly died there, man. And he says, nah, I'm fine. And I was looking at the other lads going, fucking hell, he nearly died there. Even they were going, nah, it's fine, Doc. And I was kind of standing back on my own with, it was like four or five lads around me, and I was going, because somebody just fucking acknowledged that he nearly just died there. But they were just like part of everyday life.
Yeah.
And yeah, it kind of, it was humbling, but I loved it. I was telling a story the other night to my lad, who's in the forces now. He's a musician, but I was telling him about me fast roping. So I was trained how to fast rope out of a helicopter for rapid insertion for boarding party. So if you board a dhow or whatever, make sure they're not smuggling oil in the Middle East. You get taught how to fast rope, which is basically just jumping out of a helicopter and doing a fireman's pole on a rope from maybe 60 foot, 40 foot, whatever you're at. And you fast rope, we're trained how to fast rope onto a ship's flight deck. Anyway, when I was working with the SBS, Tom, who was the SBS captain, came up to me and he says, Doc, are you fast rope trained? I says, yeah. And he says, Dunker trained? And I was like, yeah. He says, right, awesome. And he walked away and I was like, what the fuck's he asking that for? But unbeknown to me, we were actually flying out. We'd done an exercise and we were in Hull. We were at this, I don't know where we were, but middle of nowhere. And the Halos picked us up. We flew out to the middle of the Ogden. And we were actually operating from like a merchant navy ship. And they says, we're going to fast rope onto the ship. And I was like, yeah, cool. But then it struck me, because I'd already been on this ship, and it struck me this ship don't have flight deck. I was like, where are we going to fast rope onto? And it was actually fast roping onto the bridge wings, which I don't know if you know how big bridge wings are, but they're pretty small. Right. So it's probably the equivalent of when you look out a helicopter and you look down and you see the flight deck. It's probably the equivalent of looking down and seeing something that's like the size of like a like a dinner tray.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's quite small, but
it's
big enough. Whereas the difference in size, like when you look out and look down, it's not a dinner tray you're seeing something the size of your mobile phone.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like perspective.
Yeah.
And I thought, fuck it. But when you're tapped on the shoulder and it's your turn to go, you've got guys behind you, the guys are going in front of you. So I just leapt out and slid down the rope, hoping that I would land on this bridge ring. And I've done it. But that's the kind of stuff you do. It's like, when you're boarding parties, jumping off of boats onto ships and all that. And I look back now and it's all of that stuff that I've done in the forces, it's like somebody else's life.
Yeah.
It's like a movie that I watched once. But I go, no, that was me. I actually done all that crazy shit. But yeah, it's fun times. So done all that in 2008. I got wind that I was on an ERP, emergency relief pool or something that stands for. It's like a signal of 5 names that come out, and my name was number 5, and I was like, what's this? So I went to see my PO. I says, Ronnie, what's this? And he says, you're on the emergency relief. And I says, what does that mean? He says, if somebody gets injured in Afghan, you'll go to number 4, and number 1 will go out and replace them, and so on and so forth. And I says, how long do I stay on that for? And he says, 6 months. I says, what's the chances of me getting activated? And he went, pretty high. He says, in fact, I would say that in the next 6 months you'll deploy to Afghan. And I was just like, nah, fuck that. I was like, I'm done. Now, I could have wangled at welfare or whatever and said I'm not going back out, and they'd have moved it and whatever, but I always think I've got quite strong morals in terms of, if I'm collecting the wage, I should be able to do the job, whether I've got a missus, or kids or whatever. And somebody always said, if you're, it was the Queen's shilling, obviously, if you're getting paid the Queen's shilling, you do the job, and if you can't, put your notice in and leave. And it was a senior officer or senior rating who said that to me very, very early on in my time in the Navy, and it kind of stuck with me. So I wasn't one of these ones that was like, I'm going to put my notice in, or I'm going to put my notice in and not do it. So it was on JP8 that just came in at the time, and I done my clicks, and my notice was in, and I went home and told the missus. I went, I've put my notice in. And we looked at each other and was like, what the fuck am I going to do now? Crazy time. Now, I could have went into medicine and done my paramedics and stuff, but because I did enjoy it, and I was good, and the amount of knowledge that I still have now, obviously you get skill fed and you forget things, but the amount of knowledge I have now, even to this day, is crazy when it comes to the medical side of it. The missus can't watch it at 24 hours in A&E, because half the time they're bringing people in and they're talking and code about what's wrong with them, not code, but they're talking about what they need, and I'll be sitting there listening, and I was like, oh, maybe he's got a tension pneumothorax, and then it'll come back and they'll say that the person's got a collapsed lung, which is a tension pneumothorax. And she looks at me and she goes, how do you know that? And I go, it's even like, it's as if I'm trained.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I actually found an advert, and it says retraining IT for the ex-armed forces, and I thought that seems like something I'd enjoy. I'd always quite liked IT, and so I went and done a retraining course at JBC Computing in Coventry. Finished that, and I done my CV, and I put my CV out there to test it to see if I was get responses, even though I knew I couldn't leave the forces for another 5 months or whatever, because it's 12 months notice you do, which is weird, right? Because any other job, you put your notice in, and if you've got another job to leave to, whereas the forces, it's the opposite way around. You got to put 12 months notice in, but you don't know what you're going to do for 12 months. And there's not many employers that are going to say, I'll give you a job, but I'll wait 12 months until you're free. Yeah. So it's a weird, horrible situation. So
they have changed that now.
Yeah.
I knew a few lads when I was in that they had job offers. Mm-hmm. They literally put their notice in, and they had job offers for 50, 60 grand jobs.
Yeah.
And they'd got a letter of that they were a contract, all the rest.
Well, that's similar what happened to me. So basically, about 4 months to go, I was testing my CV, and I got an interview, and it was a cash machine engineer's role, which was on the IT kind of page, that purely IT I was using or whatever it was. So I put in an application, and the agency guy rang me back within minutes, and me being me, Billy bullshitter, no cuff too tough, wing it and all that. I just basically said to me, I'm sure you give training. He's like, you've got no background. I was like, yeah, but I'm awesome. I'm a quick learner. And he was like, I'm really impressed with you over the phone. He says, I'll put you in for an interview. So he put me in for an interview. I drove all the way to King's Lynn from Corby, from Wittering, which is near enough the same. And I sat down with this guy called Graham Runicles, works for IBM, does cash machines. He was a cash machine engineer manager. And he was like, same thing, you've got no experience, you've got no background. And I was like, yeah, but I'll pick it up. I says, I know how to use a screwdriver and all that. And he says, yeah, but you say you know how to use a screwdriver, but you've got no evidence in your background of how to use a screwdriver. And I says, well, I can prove to you I can use a screwdriver. I can, I can show you that. And he says, all right. He says, well, what about being a medic and fixing computers? How's that comparable? And I says, well, It's the same sort of thing, really. I says, somebody presents to you and they've got loads of signs and symptoms. You take the symptoms, you work out what's wrong with them, you come to a prognosis, then you fix it.
Yeah.
I say, same with a computer. Computer presents to you, or a system, any bit of hardware presents to you with signs and symptoms. You look at the signs and symptoms, come up with a prognosis, and then you fix it. I says, same thing. So it's just being methodical. So he was impressed anyway, and he got me along for a second interview. In the second interview, he had like a big cash machine reader, and I had to take that apart and put it back together again without him. He taught me how to take it apart, and he wanted me to put it back together without him giving me any more direction. And we done that. I got offered the job, but it was only about 18 grand a year, and in the forces I was on 22 grand a year. 20 grand a year. And so it was a pay cut, and I was losing the married quarter and stuff.
Yeah.
And although the job was, it's not that I didn't want it, it was only a test to get into the swing of doing interviews and see if my CV worked. So I could have rang up the agency and says, look, thanks very much, but no thanks. But I actually had Graham's number, so I rang Graham direct, and I said, look, this isn't I just wanted to ring you up and say thanks very much for the offer, but I can't accept, and explained why about the money situation. Then he says, I can't give you any more money. I says, I'm no ringing you to try and squeeze you for more money. I says, it's just literally timing and, leaving so early to take a pay cut when I can still stay in and get that extra money. So about a week later, I got a phone call off another guy that Graham had spoken to, his colleague, and he basically says, look, I can offer you a wee bit more money than what Graham's offering you, but I need you to start in 4 weeks. That's non-negotiable. I need you to start. I've got a training course that I need you on in 4 weeks' time. And I was like, shit. So I had to take that bit of paper, that email, into my warrant officer, who I got on really well with. And he'd been in like 36 years in the Navy, all proper old school. And I went in and I says, sir, can I have a word? And he says, yeah, come in, son. And I says, I've got some good news and I've got some bad news. And he says, right, start with the good news first. I says, I've got a job. And he went, that's brilliant, brilliant. What's the bad news? I went, I start in 4 weeks. He says, nearly fell off his chair. And he says, son, if I can get you out, I'll get you out. And he pulled some strings and wangled it. And I was a civvy 4 weeks later.
Nice.
So I left the Navy on the 8th of the 8th of the 8th. So I left the Navy on the 8th of August 2008, which is a good date to leave, I suppose. And
memorable.
I left on the Friday and I started with IBM as an engineer on the Monday.
Yeah.
And I went straight on a course. Well, I had a week before I went on the course. The week was basically an induction where I was working at Peterborough, Lloyd's data centre. So I was working Lloyd's data centre, learning how to fix. It wasn't cash machines, so it was servers, tape machines, everything that you get inside a data centre, basically. So doing that job, learning on the fly, like basically I well paid. I was on 23 grand a year with a company car, mobile phone, laptop, all that kind of stuff, which it doesn't sound crazy now saying mobile phone and laptop, but back then that was a big thing, do you know what I mean? So learning that job and learning rapid, it was a steep, it wasn't a steep learning curve, it was vertical.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I had to learn quick. I was amongst people who really knew the job, but I picked it all up. I've always been a really, really fast learner, as long as it's practical and there's not too much reading involved. Whilst I was at RAF Wittering, I got tested by an RAF education officer, and she actually diagnosed me, if you like, with dyslexia, which I never knew I had. I had an idea I had it, but nothing ever was like, but she basically said, yeah, you've got mild to moderate dyslexia. And I was like, well, what happens now? And she went, nothing. I was like, brilliant, that's good to know. So she just says, at least now you know, and it's helped me make changes of how I do things. So with a hop, skip and a jump in the IT world, I moved rapid within IBM. I got sent to work at Santander in Milton Keynes, and I was shadowing two guys. There was a guy called Anthony Leon, who is probably one of the most intelligent people I've ever met in my life. Like, phenomenal. He had been with IBM like 16 years, and he was due to be promoted to what they call front office, which is like, the next level up. So you basically sit there and give directions on how to fix things. So you like go to help desk. At level 2. So I was working with him, and there was another guy, Stephen Kelly, who'd been with IBM like 46 years or something like that, crazy. And he was retiring, and I was replacing both of them. So I was going into Santander, and they basically said, look, these two guys are moving on. You need to learn this job because you're replacing both of them. And I was like, why have you put me in here? Look, there's nobody. And they were like, no, we think you can do it.
Bloody hell.
Yeah, so I was the on-site rep then and engineer for Santander Bank for IBM. So anything that went wrong, I was the first port of call. I was also looking after all the firmware. So if you imagine the bank's hardware infrastructure, which was IBM, and some HP stuff as well, all the firmware needs to be up to date. And it was partly my job to keep track of it and update it. But that was a problem in itself because I was there working for IBM, but I was working with the bank. So we had this like kind of triangle of death going on where the bank would say, I need my firmware updated, and I'd go, okay, I'll do that. But they wouldn't let me do it until 2300 at night, which obviously I'm not paid to work at 11 o'clock at night, so that's overtime. So then the bank, IBM wouldn't, I was getting loads of overtime, right, basically initially, but then I was doubling my salary. And eventually IBM were like, we're not paying you that extra money. If the bank want that done, you have to do it in hours, and the bank were like, we're not doing it in hours, because obviously that's when the systems are used. Yeah. So I was like, I don't know, I'm just feeling the middle here. And I was getting my contract, so the contract that had me in place there was worth 120 grand a year.
Right.
And I was on like 20 grand a year, 25 grand a year salary. But I was doubling that with my overtime. So I was walking away overall, but I was having to do a lot of overtime. Anyway, long story short, I got told by IBM that my contract was at risk, which basically meant my job was at risk. And the manager at the bank basically, I took him aside and I says, look, you need this work done. I can do it. It's all publicly accessible, so it's not like you need IBM in order to get the firmware. Yeah. So I basically took a chance and says, look, why don't you just
get rid
fuck
of
IBM off?
Yeah.
I says, because they're the ones that are causing the problem. I says, just employ me direct. Employ me direct. You tell me to jump. I'll say how high. I says, and you save money because you're not paying 120 grand a year. You're paying me more than what I'm getting paid now. So I make more money. You save money.
Everyone's happy.
And I work the hours that you tell me to work. So the manager was like, that's a fucking great idea. You save my budget and you earn more. And so basically I've done that for 5 years. I tripled my salary then. So I was only about 60 grand a year. And I was over the moon with that. And done that for about 5 years until eventually that contract ended. And at the end of that contract, I was like, I've kind of rode this gravy train a bit too much. I didn't really do any further training. I thought it would last forever.
Yeah.
So they let me go from the contract, which in retrospect was fine because that was I learned loads of new skills. I learned working within the Windows department, so the Wintel department, how to do Windows administration, how to do VMware administration. And most importantly, I'd worked in a bank. So if you look at IT as an industry, the best sector to be in is the financial services sector and the banking sector. And I had worked there. So once you've worked in there and worked in that that niche, they tend to hire within. So basically, I got let go. I was out of work for about a month or two, and I got contacted by a guy, and he was like, I can't remember his name now, but he basically says, my name's Craig. I was like, hi, Craig. I'm hiring for a job in London. And I was like, all right. He says, you've used IBM BigFix? And I was like, yeah, I've used IBM BigFix. And he says, how good are you with it? I went, well, I'm tip top. Like, I says, what do you need? And he says, well, basically, the company that I'm going to work for, they're building out a security operations centre because they were owned by another big Canadian company. That big Canadian company sold them off, so now they have to have their own SOC.
Yeah.
And they need people to build that for them, and you'd be able to help. And I was like, all right, okay. Now, me being me, again, I was like, yeah, I could do that. Could I do it? I don't know. Was I qualified to do it? Probably not. Did I have the experience to let? Nah. But I was like, yeah, I'm your man. So he says, I'll put you forward for an interview. Done the interview. It very quickly became apparent that the guy interviewing me knew absolutely nothing about IBM BigFix. So the fact that I knew marginally more than him meant I was an expert to him.
Yeah.
But again, the biggest thing I'll say is the fact that I had worked in the financial sector already, and this was a financial services company, meant that I I could learn on the job. So done the interview, got offered the job, and the agency guy says, "What's your rate?" And I was like, "I have absolutely no idea." I says, "Never worked in London. I don't know." And he says, "Well, I'll put you forward at $450 a day." And I was like, "Wow, that's a lot of money." So yeah, I was on 450 quid a day. Done that for 4 months, earned a lot of money, and then got let go from there. Done a job in Peterborough for a while. That wasn't a great job. Good company, good people to work with, but not a great job. And whilst I was there, a job advert came up online, and it was for IBM Big Fix, and I was like, I've done that before. So again, I was like, yeah, I could definitely do the job this time. And it was for a contract with UBS, which is a Swiss bank, the world's largest Swiss bank. And I took that. It was only a 3-month contract, and I was like, well, even at 3 months, it's it's equivalent to like a normal a year's salary. So I'd done that. And I kept getting extended. I was like, I got a 9-month extension, then I got a 12-month extension. So I'd done that for nearly 18 months before the pandemic hit. And when the pandemic hit, they ended all the contracts. And then I was out of work. But then in between that time, I had put a VR headset on, and that's where my world would change. That's I tried when I signed for the first London contract with a company called Capco. I was going to sign for my new contract, and I went through the Old Street Underground station near Shoreditch. And if you've ever been there, it's basically an underground warren of little tunnels and stuff in the underground. And it's pretty cool. And you've got these shops that you can rent out for like a month at a time. So little pop-ups.
Okay.
And anybody can rent them out. So I was walking past with the missus, and I seen this blacked out shop with like neon signs, and it said Otherworld. I was like, what is this? So I stuck my head in, and I was like, what's this? And he says, it's a VR arcade. And I was like, what's that? He says, basically rent some time in a VR headset. I was like, I've got a VR headset. I tried on a VR headset at the Festival of Remembrance. I went to the Festival of Remembrance at the Royal Albert Hall, and I tried on a headset at Harrods. And I was like, this is amazing. This is like Star Trek technology. And if nobody's ever tried VR before, it is, honestly, it's like, you can't believe that technology exists now. Anyway, so I'd bought a headset. And that guy put this thing in my head. I was like, that's a business. I was like, and I knew, I was like, so I knew I wanted to open a business. I knew I wanted to do something new and exciting. I knew I didn't want to own a coffee shop because everybody's done a coffee shop before. I didn't want to, open a business that was not ground level. I wanted something at ground level, or basement level, that I could, grow with the industry. And I was like, VR's it. I was like, it's like, it was already amazing. It blew my mind. And this is like, 2017. And I was like, I'm going to start a business in this. And I was earning good money. There was lots of money in the bank. And I was like, I'm going to start a business in this. So I started making inquiries, doing my homework. And registered a business called Viral Entertainment. And we looked at a place up Corby Town Centre. Why Corby? I was like, well, why not? It's a good test bed for if you can make the business work in a small town, then you can make it work anywhere. I knew people say, never work in Corby. You look at places like Adrenaline Alley, highly successful. And you look at companies like Trapped, Market Trapped, started and they've done exceptionally well. One of the leading escape room companies in UK. So I was like, well, I can make this work. We opened up the business, and 4 months, not even 4 months, we opened up on the 4th of November 2019, and the country went into its first lockdown at the start of March. So it was literally like 4 months later after we opened. So I've invested thousands, tens and tens of thousands into this, taking out loans, and then we went into lockdown. And the business was doomed from that moment on. But me being me, I wouldn't say quit. I wouldn't give up. And I says, I'll keep going until somebody tells me to turn the lights off. Simple as that. But the business, we were taking in good money, but we couldn't pay all the bills. And it just so happened that whenever a big bill was due, we'd get some sort of grant. Or, for instance, during the pandemic, VAT was changed. So I can't remember the ins and outs of it, but we were charging 20% VAT, and we were giving 20% VAT to the taxman. But unbeknown to us, it was actually only supposed to be 5% to give to the taxman. So we were supposed to keep 15%. And I said to my accountant, I says, that's not right. So basically, a new accountant basically said, I'll look into that for you. So the money we got back from that was a big chunk that kept the business going a wee bit longer. And there always seemed to be things like that along the way that just helped us out.
Yeah.
And me being ever the optimist, I was like, next month it's going to change. Any moment now it's going to change. And as I say, we're bringing in good money, but we're just paying bills, just constantly paying bills. And it worked out. I was paying myself a salary, and this is most limited company directors pay themselves 750 quid, 700 quid salary, and then the rest of you take out the business, you take it as dividends. Now that's standard. It's being tax efficient, so you don't overpay in tax. But because of the pandemic, I was getting 80% of 700 quid, which wasn't even enough to pay like half the mortgage.
Yeah.
So the business, me personally, was building up crazy amounts of debt, personally, and the business was building up debt as well. So you fast forward to the end of the business, I was like, I'm doing easily 70 hours a week. I mean, easily in the business, thinking about the business, administrating the business, 70 hours a week. But I was paying myself 700 quid a month. So you do the maths, it worked out about £2 an hour. I was paying myself. And I was like, you can't keep that up forever. So we went and seen an insolvency guy, and he basically said, look, you've sold your house to pay off personal debt. I says, yeah. He says, so you've got lots of money there, equity just sitting there. He says, just buy out all the equipment from the business. Use the money that you pay for the equipment to put in an application to close the business down, which will get accepted because the business isn't viable how it is. And I says, can you do it? He says, it happens every single day of the week, mate. He says, it's perfectly fine. He said, because at the end of the day, you're doing 70 hours a week. So you're doing, easily, nearly 200, 300 hours a month for 700 quid. He says, nobody would work for that. He says, and without you doing them hours, the business is knackered anyway.
Yeah.
He says, so just close the business down and start again. Start a new business with no debt, with no, lighter overheads, and with the knowledge that you've got and the equipment that you're buying out. So that's what we've done. So we closed the business in April. And we had to do it straight away. We didn't get any notice. We got the Friday, we got a bill in, and it was basically the landlord, who was super good. The landlord was good, but eventually it was like, you need to pay. And I was like, we can't. And they went, if you don't pay by the end of today, we're going to hit you with a 7-day, that's a 4-letter acronym it's called, but basically, if you don't pay by the end of the day, we'll give you a notice, which basically means that everything that's in the business is yours. And I was like, well, let's not have that happen, because, I've worked hard for everything that's in the business.
Yeah.
So we bought out all the equipment there and then. It all got independently valued. We bought it all out, including all of the IP, which is like the intellectual property. So the website address, social media, all the reviews, bought everything. So we then personally owned that, and with starting the new business, we just injected all of that in the new business. And we restarted. We started Odyssey VR around about May, June. And initially we were going to start as like a mobile business where, because the equipment's all mobile. So last night we were over at the William Nib Centre in Kettering. That was for 22 Cub Scouts. And we can go there and be set up in half an hour, 20 minutes, half an hour. But we were missing out on loads of bookings and loads of people that wanted to book us because we didn't have a venue ourselves. And with Junior, our Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu coach, leaving the venue he was in and moving elsewhere, he was moving out the venue. And I was like, this would make a cracking VR centre because it's a big open space. And he told me how much the rent was, and I was like, I can work with that. I says, as long as I'm generating anywhere near the money we were generating with Viral. So I took over the lease from Junior. That's at the business centre, which is the back of Corby, Asda. We've been there 10 weeks now. And it was doing really, really well, really well. And you can read the reviews online. I mean, the business kind of, it's weird saying to people, but anybody can do it. And I mean anybody, it doesn't matter if you're young. So from, ages 5, 6, you can put a headset on and enjoy it. We say 7 as a standard. And they've only got the headset on for an hour, so it's not going to damage their eyes. There's no long-term damage to the eyes. Now, when I have had people saying kids that age shouldn't be staring at a screen that long.
Yeah.
I know kids that age shouldn't be staring at a screen that long in general. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, the recommendations are they don't stare at a TV screen, a phone, a tablet for longer than 60 minutes at one time. Nobody, right, is taking their kids off a tablet after that much time.
No.
So, you know, whether it's a VR headset or not, you know, 1 hour is not going to do any damage. So anybody, so from a young age, 70, and the oldest person we've had in a VR headset is 103. Correct. Yeah, that was at Mabel at the Priors Hall care home. We went in there. It was Mabel's birthday, and she had a bucket list that she wanted to do. And one of the things she had on her bucket list was to go up in a glider. So we were asked, could we make that happen? It's like, absolutely, we can make anything happen. Yeah. So they booked us, we went in, and we managed to do lots with her. So we took her to New Zealand. She's on the beach in New Zealand. She had to lift her feet out the water. There's a video online, it's cracking. She lifts her feet out the water in case they get wet, because it's that believable. It's you believe you're there. And she's looking around the beach, and there's a seagull, and she's in New Zealand. Then we took her up in the glider. And then there was another guy there in the care home as well. I forget his name. He loved birds. He had aviaries throughout his whole life, parrots and stuff. So we put him in an aviary, and there was parrots flying round him and stuff. And he was like talking about them and telling you what they were and all that. And I think that's like brilliant for the older generation anyway, because it's so engaging and it's so, you know, real. And although physically we can't get them out because of their age and the mobility issues, but you can virtually, and it is super believable. Yeah. So that's just one part of the business. But, you know, with the oldest person we've had doing Hero Zone, which is the activities and adventures that we do in VR, is 85. And her name is like Agnes, and she was like a wee Glasgow granny. And the customers were like, come on, Agnes, get in here, you'll love it. And she's like, I'm not getting in there, a lot of crap. But eventually we got her in, and she was playing Arrow Song. It's like a bow and arrow game. Dead easy. It's one button, right? And everything else is just natural. So as you would do if you had a real bow and arrow. And she'd done that one game, and she came out, and her reaction was brilliant, to the point where I videoed it and put it online, and it went like mini viral. Because it's genuine. Like, when people do VR, they have absolutely no way of informing their brain how good it's going to be. And she came out, she was like, that's amazing. It's brilliant. Everybody's got to try it. 85 years old. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, I maintain, you know, VR's for everybody. You know, there's not many, like, I always say, you know, with the reactions that I've had with grandparents, especially grandparents, right, it's for everybody. But if I was to wake up tomorrow and every single grandparent within an hour's drive knew that they could bring their grandkids to my centre, and how good it would be, how much the kids would enjoy it, how much they'd enjoy it, how much they could engage with their kids doing something that they enjoy, how easy it is, and how much fun it is. You know, all that. If every single, I'd be a millionaire, because that's how good it is, right? And that's just the grandparents. That's not parents. It's not, you know, groups, kids, parties, just grandparents. Because it's hard for me, because I'm going to stand there and say how good it is. It's my business, right?
Yeah, of course.
Right. And it's not lost on me, right? I am a second-hand car salesman.
Yep.
Don't trust me, right? But go and read the reviews. Go and have a look. Go and speak to somebody that's done it at my centre, or a centre similar to it. And there is some of them out there. There's about 30 in the UK now. So they're out there. But yeah, these you know, being able to jump in a headset with up to 6 other people and, you know, do the adventures that we offer, nothing else comes close. Nothing else comes close. It's so much fun, and it's only going to get better. That leads on to what you were saying. You know, where's the future?
That was what I was going to ask. So where do you see it going in the future then?
What we do, or virtual reality in general?
I mean, virtual reality in general. Obviously, you know, a few years back we had the Ready Player One,
the movie. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that was pretty realistic.
Yep.
Obviously, you can be an alien. You can be anything you wanted.
So that movie's not a million miles away from what the future will be like, I don't think. Obviously, it's Hollywood, right? But we already live in a world, quite sad, really, but we already live in a world where we don't want to be ourselves. We want to look at, you know, we want to look over the fence. So if you think about Instagram, right? People are on Instagram, which is one of, you know, dozens and dozens of apps. You know what I mean? So you got Instagram, you got Snapchat, and people look at other people's lives, and go, "Oh, that looks amazing." Because that's what we do, right? And that's not just a social media thing. That's been around for, So any old people out there going, I don't watch social media because that's so fake. Yeah, I'll remind you of the soap magazines that you used to be able to buy. Same thing, right? Okay. Oh, look, that pop star's doing this and that film star's doing that, and they've got such good lives, and same thing, right? It's just on steroids now with social media, and that's going to go even further, because when we can step inside a virtual world, and the headsets at the moment are big and bulky. Mobile phones used to be big and bulky. Then the money was spent on it, and they were just in size, and the quality became much better. Now mobile phones don't improve much. Model to model, the screen's not getting much better. The cameras aren't getting much better. So there's nothing more to improve. That is as good as what you're going to get, right? It's fully evolved. Now the next big battleground is VR and augmented reality, which will eventually lead to smart glasses. So glasses that are the size of glasses now, and have all the functionality of a smartphone, but in a heads-up display, where we mix everything that our phones can do and more, right, with the world around us, and you'll be able to be in the same room as someone else, as if I'm talking to you now. So we're literally sitting across from each other, as if we're in the same room, because we are in the same room. There's a podcast out there, Lex Friedman, who's an AI specialist, and he has a chat with Mark Zuckerberg inside the metaverse, as if they're in the same room as I'm talking to you now, doing a podcast. And it's out there, so you can go and YouTube that. That's the future. So why would you use a 2D screen when you can use a monitor, a headset that allows you to be wherever you want to be? So it leads me on to Web 3.0. So Web 3.0 or Web 3 is the third version of the internet. So the first version of the internet was dial-up computers, big massive CRT screens, monitors, and it was very slow. And all you could really do was consume data. So you could read data. So people could put a website up and you could read the website. Yeah. And
after it loaded.
Yeah, in the odd picture. Yeah. That was it. Videos were non-existent, and everything was so slow. Then along came broadband, and broadband in its early days was light years ahead of dial-up. You could actually start loading web pages faster. Then along came YouTube, and you could watch videos. Then along came smartphones, and that was Web 2.0. So the same way as you didn't really notice Web 1.0 turn into Web 2.0, Web 3.0 is here, and it's around us, and it's VR headsets. So everything up till this point, Web 1, Web 2, has been screen-based. Now, everything that we do with the internet nowadays, right, that's Web 2.0 is screen-based. So if you want to access the internet on your phone, screen-based. Yeah. You want to access a computer and go on the internet to use the internet, maybe just go on Google Drive or whatever, screen-based. Yeah. Watch Netflix, screen. You get what I'm getting at? Everything is on a screen. Tablet, iPad, screen. So to access the internet at the moment, you need a screen. What the headsets are going to do is get ultra small, ultra lightweight, ultra portable, and ultra realistic, to the point where we no longer access the internet on a screen. By putting on the headset, we are inside the internet.
You immerse yourself.
Yeah, so you're then able to replace screens to a point. They'll still be there, the same way as evolution doesn't always kill. So for instance, DVD killed VHS. Yeah. Once DVD came along, VHS is dead. Then streaming killed DVD, right? But DVD is still a medium, so you can still buy a DVD, but nobody's renting a DVD. No. You get what I'm saying, right? So evolution comes along. Now, sometimes evolution destroys an industry, but sometimes that industry still exists. So, for instance, if we talk about the wireless, so the wireless was that was the peak of technological advancement 100 years ago, and then along came TV. And everybody's like, TV's going to replace radio. It hasn't. Radio's still there. And it still has its purpose, right? Because if you're using your hands, I listen to the radio all the time. Yeah. Or, smart speakers.
I had the radio on when you came in.
Exactly, mate. So radio has its place, right? Whether it's a podcast or whether it's, Radio 1, whatever it is you're listening to. And it's the same way with this. So radio's still going to be there. The TVs are still going to be there. and mixed reality and virtual reality will come into that and dilute that technology industry. Now, so have you heard of Tim Cook? He's the CEO of Apple.
Yeah.
He was talking about the Apple Vision Pro. Now, Apple Vision Pro comes out next year. That's the new VR headset that Apple are releasing. Which, when I tell people, they're like, "I didn't know Apple were releasing a headset." Well, they are. It's £3,500. Right, $3,500. Well, dollars, pounds is still to be, but it'll be. You know what it's like: $3,500, $3,500, £3,500. So, but the crazy thing is, when that gets released, a lot of people are going to be like, "Oh my god, Apple have invented VR," and you're like, they haven't. VR's been around a long time. Now, Apple didn't want to bring out a headset that size. They didn't, right? They want to bring out a pair of smart glasses.
Yeah.
Right. But that technology is just not there yet. Right. But we're going to get there, and we're going to get there rapid. It's not going to happen overnight, but it'll be quick.
When you say quick,
5 years, 10 years.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Well, you're wearing a pair of glasses which have heads-up display built into them. You can already get them now. So Meta have a pair of smart glasses that you can buy. There's nothing actually on the screen, but you can take a phone call, listen to a podcast, listen to music, take photographs, go live on Facebook, record video.
So how is the sound thing? Is that from
perfect, mate?
From the
directed down, yeah. Perfect. Honestly, it's so clear, and nobody around you can hear it. Yeah, well, they can hear it. They can hear like a small sound, but it wouldn't put you off. Like if you were sitting next to them on the underground, you wouldn't be like, "Can you turn that down?"
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Same as headphones.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly the same. So, and that's off ear. So they're not headphones. They're off ear. They're basically built into the arms of the sunglasses or the glasses. So they already exist now. They're about £300, and the technology that's in them is ridiculous. And over time, that's the form factor. That's the size of the headset that they're aiming for. So over time, all the technology that they can fit into those will be squeezed into those.
With that though, with the VR, having them as like a glasses, you mean like as in sunglasses, but what you've got now with obviously the wraparounds, with that completely obviously desensitizes you from the outside world.
Yeah.
Like you're completely blacked out.
Yeah.
Whereas a sunglass style VR headset wouldn't.
Yeah. So the headsets, the Meta Quest 3 that's just been released now, so I've got the Meta Quest Pro, which is my own personal headset. That brought in colour, high definition, mixed reality. So all you have to do is basically on the side of your headset is just tap it twice, and the virtual world, which you can't see anything, as you quite rightly say, is replaced by the real world. So you can see the real world around you.
Right, okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then if you want to go back into VR, so somebody walks in and goes, asks you a question or enters the room, and you can have it set up so the Apple Vision Pro, if anybody comes near you, the Apple Vision Pro will basically show you them entering your field of view.
Right, okay.
Does that make sense?
So,
the headset will detect that they're there, and they'll show you them entering your play space. So all this technology is being evolving all the time, and they'll be able to see your eyes through a fancy screen on the front. And Meta's doing that as well, but Meta's aiming at a different market, so it's $500-ish, £480 for the Meta Quest 3, which has just come out, which, to be honest with you, is a phenomenal price for the headset that you're getting. It just is. There's better headsets out there, but you have to pay for them, right? The Apple Vision Quest, when it comes out, will be... It's basically like, what have you got there, like a MacBook Air or a MacBook Pro, right? So it's basically, it's going to be like, a top-of-the-range iPhone, a top-of-the-range MacBook Pro, and a top-of-the-range monitor, all squeezed into a headset, where it's got eye tracking built in, so whatever you're looking at, the headset knows what you're looking at. Now, and then it's a simple squeeze of your fingers is how you click on whatever you're looking at. So if you go watch the YouTube video of how this thing works, you don't have to. There's no controllers, so everything's hand gestures. So if you want to grab something, just pull it, make it bigger, and the headset controls everything. What I was saying about Apple, they didn't want to get involved at this stage, but they know that it's going to expand so quickly that if they wait until the headset's small enough, they'll have lost so much market share.
Yeah.
So they had to release something now, and that's they've been a bit at war at Apple, because they wanted to wait. Half of them didn't, but the decision was taken to get involved now, and they've went down their route, which is an external battery and all of that. But it'll be quite interesting to try the headset. I think, like everything, I think when you look back at the first iPhone that came out, which revolutionised the smartphone market, the big thing was the screen and how accurate the screen was.
Yeah.
The pinch and zoom, sliding. That's the pioneered bit was the screen, and that's the thing. Here's the eye technology. So the eye tracking technology is supposed to be the best, and the ability to be able to just manipulate and operate the headset with just using your fingers. So it'll be really interesting to see how they've done that. I can't wait to try it. I don't know if Lynette will let me buy one, but it's a business expense, right? Because it's research and development.
Yeah.
We'll wait and see. We'll see how good the business is doing.
Well, maybe after the introduction and the description of her that you gave at the start of the podcast.
Yeah,
maybe
Apple. If you want to send me one, to
swing the way
to try. But yeah, I think like Tim Cook, who's the CEO of Apple, he's on record as saying that augmented reality, so mixed reality, and this is crazy to get your head around, right?
I'll try.
It will have a bigger impact on human society than the internet has had.
Will it though?
Well,
because
he knows more than me and you.
The only reason I say that is that like nowadays, or even say 5-10 years ago, you've got so many more kids already inside, locked into their PlayStations, Xboxes, all the rest of it.
It's going to go deeper, which isn't a good thing.
But
I'm not saying
they're
it's a
still
good
going to
thing.
be in their bedrooms, doing it.
Yeah, but it's. Listen, I'm not selling this. I'm saying that I'm giving you my vision of where I think it's going to go. I think it's going to have even bigger impacts on kids' mental health, people's mental health. I think it will help a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's going to help the environment. For instance, there's people jumping on planes right now and heading thousands of miles to just go for a meeting.
Yeah.
That's going to end.
Yeah.
People don't have to jump on a plane to go to a meeting anymore because they can put on a headset and they can be in the meeting virtually. No, they can do that now. You can say, you can do that now with a video camera. Well, if I'm looking at you in your eyes, right, we are having a connection now, right?
Yeah.
And micro gestures. Micro gestures, the old, I don't know what percentage it is. So let's say it's 80% of all communication is non-verbal.
Yeah.
Right. Micro gestures, like you closing your eyes there, so you can see that's genuine. All these wee things, right? You can't get that on a screen.
No,
you just can't, right? So if I look at a screen, so if I get my phone out and I'm having a chat with somebody on my phone, in order to look at them, I have to look at the screen. If I'm looking at the screen, I'm not looking at the camera. And I can't have eye contact unless I look at the camera. But if I'm looking at the camera, I'm not looking at their eyes. So you can't actually have eye contact whilst on a screen, which is Web 2.0. With Web 3.0, it will be more connected because it won't feel that you're in the same room. For all intents and purposes, you will be in the same room with that person. Now, that leads me on to the other thing, which is but simulation theory. Because at some point in the future...
Keep the mic just a little bit close.
Sorry, mate. So at some point in the future, when technology gets good enough, and it's not an if, it's a when, assume, and this is something that Elon Musk has said, so, assume any rate of improvement, 1% a year, 0.1% of a year, right? You take that timeline and extend it 10 years, 100 years, 1,000 years, however long you want, right? There's only two alternatives. The human race destroys itself, right? Or technology becomes powerful enough that we can create a simulation which you can't tell the difference between what's real and what's not.
Yeah.
Now, until you've tried VR, high-end VR, you don't realise where VR's at now. 360-degree, ultra-high definition, interactive, immersive experiences. That's there today. Yeah. Where will that be in 20 years' time?
Oh yeah, 100%.
30, 40, 50 years time, right?
If you look at it just if you go backwards, if you look at what technology was 30 years ago to now, if you do that again, do you know what I mean? Like you said about the percentage increase.
Yeah.
And so we've got potentially millions, billions of years until we're consumed by the sun and all the rest of it. So
time is no factor. No. Time is something that's a very human thing.
Yeah.
Because we only live about 80 years. We assume that, 8 years, 2 generations. And this is another thing as well, and this is the cool thing to talk about. Like, what's to say technology didn't already get there? and we are now just living in a simulation because the future's a bit crap.
Yeah.
And this is a better way to spend your life, is in a simulation of a better time.
This is the theory of few
Right.
people.
The Matrix.
Yeah.
Right? And that seems so sci-fi. But when you're in the industry and when you've tried virtual reality and you see how immersed people get and they're shitting themselves because the zombies coming, and the zombies aren't real. Right?
Yeah.
And you see people leaning on counters and leaning on basketball machines and falling over because you've told them it's not real. They know it's not real. The logical part of their brain knows what they're doing is not real. But the subconscious believes it because what the eye see, the mind believes.
Mm.
And it's even where it's at now, where the graphics aren't amazing, and where it's at now, where, you know, the headsets are really heavy, it's still enough to fill your brain into thinking that ledge is real.
Yeah.
So it don't take much more to fill those five senses. That's all you've got. And once you've filled those five senses, you don't know the difference. You don't.
No, yeah, you're right.
So what's to say we're not in a simulation now? People go, yeah, but we're not. No, how do you know? How do you know? You don't know.
We don't know, but
Elon
I would
Musk-
like to think that if we were in a simulation of sorts, that there wouldn't be the sort of stuff that's happening this day and age.
Yeah. But then you'd be able to tell you're in a simulation to an extent because the world's a utopia and it's, you know...
Yeah.
So, you know, it's a cracking subject to talk on, and there's people who are much more qualified and much more intelligent than me who have turned around and said the chances are we're in a simulation. Elon Musk says that chances that we're in base reality, as in this is the first time that any of this has ever happened ever, the chances that that's the fact is billions to one.
Yeah, but the fact that we're here is.
Yeah. Well, that's that. Yeah. So the chances that we won the race and were born, but no, it's a cracking subject to talk on. But and the fact that we're in such a new industry, and I look at I read stories about the early days of the internet where it was the Wild West, and that's kind of where we are with VR. That, you know, I've not got a lot of people or companies that I can look at and go, that's how I need to do it.
Yeah.
I'm having to cut my own path.
Yeah.
Learn from my mistakes. And, you know, there's a lot of companies out there that are doing VR, and I have my own thoughts on the right way to do it. I'm a big believer in customer service. It's huge, man. Like, if you read our reviews, we look after the customer. Like, there's an analogy. I think it's Jeff Bezos, who's the founder of Amazon. I'm sure it's his analogy. He talks about an orchard. He says like having a business is a bit like, you know, having an orchard. He says, you know, if you've just got one orange tree and all you're interested in is collecting the money from that business, you know, collecting the fruit, then very quickly you'll run out of fruit.
Yeah.
And you know, you'll have lots of fruit, lots of money, and once you've taken all of that, you've got nothing left. Whereas you just take what you need. Just take what you need and then use the fruit that you get to look after the orchard. So check the soil, take a seed, plant a seed, start a nursery, raise that sibling, you know, start little side projects like if it's a business, you know, and look after it, your customers, which is the tree obviously, and then, you know, eventually, over time, you'll have enough trees producing enough fruit in the orchard where you'll never have to worry about fruit or money ever again. And that's where I'm at, is like I'm taking things so slow and doing things organically where I can, and learning what does a customer, because customers are quite simple, really. What do they want? They want value for money.
Yep.
Which we provide. Now, it's hard for people to justify in their heads the cost sometimes because it's not the cheapest form of entertainment. But once people do it, they get it. They're like, yeah, that's worth it. 100%. No. Why would you come and put on a headset and have fun together in VR? Well, ultimately, we live in a world, quite a materialistic world, where, you know, we want a bigger house, we want a bigger car, faster car, we want to wear the best clothes, we want to eat, you know, the best food. All of that's nonsense. This is something that I've kind of come to realise. You know, and life's all about memories.
Experiences.
Yeah, experiences and memories, and, you know, doing things together. Leaving leaving things behind which are, I've just literally said goodbye to my sister, obviously, and we had some horrible times growing up and later on in life, which I won't go into, but the things that I'll remember is a good time and the memories together. The actual material possessions, I have nothing now. Just pictures, memories, things we've done together. And that's kind of what you want for your family, is you want to do things which are enjoyable. Memories. I could tell you roughly what toys I got when I was growing up as a kid.
Yeah.
But I couldn't tell you all of them.
You remember the adventures, though?
But I remember where I had my birthday party.
Yeah.
I remember who was there. I remember what we'd done. So that's kind of the environment that we try and set when we have a birthday party. Odyssey VR is we try and make it so that the customer feels central to everything. It's not just a case of come in, put you in a headset, press play, finish and leave. I'll try and have a bit of banter with the customers. I'll play it by ear. I'll have a laugh and a joke with the kids. And it's like, when they walk in, you hit play, and I just regurgitate the same stuff. But I do it in such a way that the kids love it. You know what I mean? And not just kids, but parents, families, groups. Like the Scouts last night was brilliant. They were devastated we run out of time. I was like, but guys, I could put you in another game. It still wouldn't be enough. I could put you in another game. It still wouldn't be enough. There's no end to how much fun this is. Like whenever I say that's enough, it's what I mean. So I just love it, and me and my wife make a good partnership. She's working in Morrison's now actually, because whilst the business is still starting out again, we need a bit more of a stable income. So her going back to work is like a payback because of all the years where she didn't have a job, didn't have an income, where she brought the kids up, and just her job was to go for coffee with her mates when the kids were in school, because I was earning good money. Now it's on the flip side where I've got this dream, and I'm like, this is going to work. When I know we've got a good business model now, I know that we're going to make the money. So she's went back and she works in Morrison's now. Whilst we're still starting out in the early days of the new business, and it's crazy with a new business because there's so much stuff that I just don't know. And you think like I've got a Facebook account. I must be a Facebook expert then. Whereas when you go into the Facebook business suite, you haven't got a clue. There's so much going on back there. You're just like algorithms and facts and figures and reach and impressions and honestly it's mind-boggling. So I need to learn all of that. I've already taught myself how to build a website, done all of that, and I love it. I love the constantly every day is different, and it's kind of having to manage, right, how much money's the business got, can I afford to do this, can I afford to do that, can I buy that, not overstretching yourself, always leaving enough money in the business, trying to spend money that will make money for the business. And why am I doing it? I'm doing it to make money, right? Ultimately, right? There's no two ways about that, right? I want to make money, but then why do I want lots of money? Because I know that not only can I change my life and make my life better, where I can have more memories, if you like, and go places. I love travelling, been all over the world with the Navy, but I want to go and see more. I could do that virtually with a headset. It's not the same. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want to go and see real places. I'd love to travel to the Great Wall of China, or see the standing terracotta army, or terracotta warrior. Sorry. I'd love to go to South America. I'd love to, all these places. So in order to do that, you need money.
Yeah.
But also you can change people's lives around you. So you can sponsor good events in the town or nationally if you get big enough. You can sponsor kids. I'd love to be like a philanthropist where if I can make the money and you can spend that money in the right places and do good things with it, would be awesome. So that's my motivation why I would like to do it.
Oh, good.
And I want a Tesla.
Yeah.
That's another motivation.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind one of them either.
Yeah.
So I'll bring this to a close now.
Yeah, man.
Thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
That's all right, mate.
Before you leave, I ask every guest this. What advice would you give to, someone that's maybe thinking about getting into the space, or? Well,
just general advice for life, right? I have no qualifications. None. Right? I grew up in a council estate. Mum died when I was young. I've beat the numbers. I'll beat the odds. And I would say I've beat them because I haven't, when I've had the chance to do something, I've grabbed it with both hands. So if you're ever in a situation where you're thinking about doing something and you have the opportunity, Just do it. Figure out the facts later. Yeah. If you've got a job that you get an offer to go and do and you don't know if you can do it, do it. Just do it.
Yeah.
Figure it out later. And you'll be surprised how the fear of something is always much worse than the actual, what actually happens. And that's like dozens and dozens of times throughout my life where I've been like, I don't know if I can, and then I do it and I go, oh, actually that was all right. I got through that. And I say that to my kids. My son's a Romanian musician now. He plays clarinet. At 13, 14 at school, I said to him, what do you enjoy? What subject? And he says, what do you mean? I says, well, forget about qualifications at school. They're important. Don't get me wrong, they have their place, but more important at schools, but learning about all these wee different subjects and stuff, what you're good at. And he said, music. I says, that's what you want to do then. Go and learn music. Go and be good at music. I says, and if you're good at it, you'll make a living from it. I says, and if you enjoy it, it's not like working.
Yeah.
I says, so go do that. My daughter as well, she's not academic, but she's got a big heart. I says, just help people. If you've got a big heart and you want to help people, you'll find a way. You'll create a career doing that. So I said that to her as well. I says, people invest in people. They don't buy into bits of paper. They help you. They open doors. But ultimately, it's you. You'll decide how successful you're going to be. And that's what I would say to people is, with VR in particular, if people want to get involved in the space, contact me off of here and we can chat. I've had people do that. I've had a guy come over from Leicester. He wanted to open a VR centre in Leicester. And you would think, oh, that's on my doorstep. But the cool thing about the VR industry at the moment is we're all colleagues. We're all helping each other, trying to grow this industry. The location-based entertainment, as it's called, LBE. So it's VR, LBE it's emerging. It's growing. I think it's worth $3 billion a year worldwide at the moment. Forbes done a report and it says it's going to grow to be worth $30 billion by 2038. So not that long away. 2028. So huge growth over the next 5 years, and I want to be part of that. I don't want a slice of the cake, but I'll take a crumb because that's going to be worth quite a lot of money.
Yeah, it will be. Yeah, definitely.
But that's my advice. Just don't be scared. Just go for it. Grab it with both hands, man.
Brilliant. What are your socials? Do you want to give them out to?
Just search Odyssey VR. Odyssey VR is on Google. It's on Facebook. It's on Instagram. So Odyssey VR _mobile on Instagram. And if you search Odyssey VR on Facebook, you'll find us. Follow us, man. I'm just a genuine guy. I'm just a working class lad who enjoys VR and don't know.
You certainly are, Gary. Right. Well, like I said again, thank you very much for coming on the podcast today. It's been brilliant having you on. And we will see you next week, everybody.
Yeah. Cool. Cheers.
Cheers.